This is a workshop on time management brought to you by the Richland College Learning Center. Throughout the workshop, you will come across slides with questions to check your understanding of key ideas and strategies as we go along. Upon completion, you will be asked to give short essay answers to questions about time management. A completion grade of 80% or better is required in order to receive credit for the workshop. Before we get too far, let's get clear on one thing. You can manage your calories, how active you are, where your money goes, how many possessions you have, what friends you hang out with, the effort you put into your schoolwork, and your attitude from one moment to the next. But what you can't directly manage is time. So, is that the conclusion to our discussion about time management? Not at all. But if you don't understand this basic truth, that time is not something you can control, you will be wasting a lot of time trying to manage it. Take a look again at some of the things just mentioned which you can manage. Effective management of any of them takes time, depending on the goals you set, and managing them all well calls for a still higher level skill. What is commonly called time management is really about managing your resources and pursuing multiple goals within a common frame of time. For example, if your next car will cost $4,000, you really don't know what that means for your monthly budget until you set a goal, a specific time by which the $4,000 needs to be saved. This factor of time is critical to the effective management of all your resources, but is not something you can manage directly. So what happens if you want to improve your fitness as you save up for a car? And what if you're a student who needs to manage schoolwork in addition to getting fit and saving for a car? How can you keep all of these different resources and responsibilities in a healthy balance? People who are poor time managers will often set themselves up for failure by either giving all their effort and attention to only one goal at a time, letting circumstantial urgency drive their choices and actions, procrastinating on things they don't feel like doing or that require more work, or jumping around randomly from one goal to another as they think of it or have spare time. To prioritize your goals means to create a schedule that respects the urgency, time frame, importance, involvement of other people, and relationships among your various goals. For instance, you might decide that going out to eat less often will help you save money faster for your next car, and you'll probably trim down in the process. And if other people are counting on you to follow through on your responsibility, getting that done might take precedence over other important goals that only belong to you. Finding this balance and being able to adjust your timetables without letting things slip out of your mind is yet another way of understanding time management. In this workshop, you will learn a system for setting goals and managing your priorities as you live your life. We have said that managing time is really about managing your goals. But what is a goal? Very simply, a goal is an outcome to be accomplished at some point in the future. Some goals are very immediate and short-term, like getting to class on time. Other goals might be set days, months, or even years into the future, such as the outcome of successfully earning your college degree. It's almost too obvious to have to say it, but unless you have a point, some specific outcome you want to accomplish, some destination in the future, something you can point to, you're going to wander aimlessly. What the goals of getting to class on time and earning your degree have in common, besides being related to your educational pursuit, is that they are specific, measurable, assignable, realistic, and anchored in time. These 5 traits were first outlined by George Duran back in 1981 to define what he called SMART goals. Basically, a SMART goal has a clear focus, is something by which you can check your progress, is accepted as your responsibility, is possible for you to achieve, and is set on the calendar at a point when you will have it accomplished. This quiz slide will help you pull forward important information from this section of the workshop, which will show up again on the certification review at the end. What's another name for a goal, as in the outcome or destination you want to reach? It's your point. Using Duran's acronym, what are the 5 attributes of a SMART goal? It's specific. It has definition and focus. It's measurable. Progress and achievement can be counted. It's assignable. Someone takes ownership of it. It's realistic. It can be accomplished. And it's time-framed. There's a point in the future when it will be accomplished. Now let's move on to our next P in this time management method. After you have defined your goal and established your point, it's very important to clarify your purpose in pursuing and achieving it. Think of purpose as what makes a goal meaningful and worthwhile. If you don't have a clear sense of purpose in what you're doing, the effort can quickly become boring and exhausting, the proverbial work list that just weighs you down and wears you out. Purpose is your why, the because, so that, and compelling reason for staying focused and working towards your point. Generally speaking, the more compelling your reason for accomplishing something, the less likely you are to lose interest or get distracted. So why are you going to class and working toward a degree? Is it just to sit there at a desk or hang a diploma on your wall someday? Merely reaching a goal is not in itself a real purpose. But maybe you are pursuing it because it will make you stronger, deepen your self-confidence, elevate your self-esteem, or get you closer to other goals farther down the road. These are all examples of purpose. It might also be that you want to avoid the consequence that is sure to come if you should leave the task undone. Before we continue with introducing this system of time management, it will be helpful to take a side trail for a bit into the topic of motivation. If time management is really about managing your resources and pursuing multiple goals within a common frame of time, then it seems fitting to pause and ask a burning question. What do you want in life? Inside that question is a still deeper one. What does it mean to want anything? When you want something, the anticipated reward is what you're after. While it's easy to think that what you want is really something external to you, wealth, adventure, success, fame, or something else, the actual attractor is how you expect to feel if and when you should get these things. The feeling that you're waiting for, hoping for, and fantasizing about is that elusive reward called fulfillment. It's the state of satisfaction and accomplishment. This internal feeling of satisfaction is the real payoff in every true reward. But finding satisfaction can be precarious because there is always a probability that it might not work out. The chance that your investment could fail or fall short of accomplishment is called risk. There might be any number of things that throw the whole venture into jeopardy, hazards, threats, and factors you can't predict. Interestingly enough, very few rewards are rewarding at all without some variable of risk involved. Even without the risk of additional loss, the pursuit of every reward requires that you give up something for its sake. It may cost you in terms of time, money, energy, and other resources along the way. The $10 you have to give up so you can watch a movie at the cinemas is a loss that you are willing to take on at least temporarily. Of course, you also run the risk of paying for a movie that leaves you dissatisfied when it's over. And let's not forget that you are giving up time away from other activities to sit for 2 hours in a theater. Without some loss, no reward is likely to be very rewarding. Finally, the degree of satisfaction you feel upon attaining a reward is also related to how much effort you put into the pursuit. When you really have to work for something, the reward of reaching your goal is all the sweeter. In fact, a goal or reward that requires no effort from you will not be very highly valued. So this is your motivational system: seeking reward, taking on some risk, giving up something of value for what you want, and putting in the effort it takes. The trick is not to let the risk, loss, or effort to outweigh the value of your reward. In fact, your nervous system is hardwired to monitor this balance so as not to let you pour the precious resources of time and energy down the drain. The moment the risk, loss, or effort exceed the anticipated value of a reward, your brain will instantly shift focus to the problem and try to resolve it. Now here's the really interesting thing. Many people are not very certain or passionate about what they want. Others may try to persuade them one way or another. But if there's not a strong anticipation of fulfillment anchored to a particular goal or outcome, they will lack focus, which means they will tend to get distracted and overwhelmed by the prospect of things not working out. This is why it is so important to take the time to clarify your purpose in pursuing a particular point or goal. If it's just to get here or have that, then you likely won't be very invested in the pursuit. Once your point is defined, or in other words, your goal is set, it's very important to establish the compelling value of your anticipated reward. Be ready for the moment when your brain shifts attention to the imbalance toward risk, loss, or effort. You will do well to heed these signals, but don't lose your focus entirely from what you really want. Be more careful as you proceed. Minimize your losses where you can, and be as efficient as possible in your efforts, as you remind yourself where you're going and why it's important to get there. Let's take as our example a major exam that's scheduled to take place in 4 weeks. The class isn't directly related to your degree, and it's been hard staying focused on the weekly assignments. When you look at it this way, there's nothing to inspire your efforts at studying. So, stop looking at it that way. Instead, tell yourself a different story. This coming exam is an opportunity to develop an effective study strategy, and doing well on it will have a definite impact on your final grade. A high grade will make a positive difference for your overall GPA, and everyone knows that high GPAs are like gold keys to scholarships and top-tier universities. If you got accepted to that one university in particular, your higher degree would open still more doors to a fulfilling career. And how great will that be? Imagine yourself putting your passion, education, and training into a creative professional life, making a difference in the world. Just look at your future self with a big satisfied smile on your face. Yep, that's where you're headed. So now, what about this exam? All of a sudden, it has become a stepping stone of progress into the life you really want. Doing your best on the exam will get you that much closer to the realization of your dream. Voila! Now your point has a purpose. Since you've already taken a longer look into the future by clarifying your purpose, let's stay in that future-oriented mode and talk about the next piece of an effective time management strategy: plan. As a rule, a bigger picture allows you to have a longer view on things. Focusing only on today's to-do list or tomorrow's deadlines will not help you feel very inspired to get at them. By stretching your frame and looking farther down the road of time, you can start connecting today's otherwise tedious chores and assignments to the big-ticket goals that will add meaning to your life. So think of your plan as a big map of your life. As you visualize your life map spread out before you, the place where you're standing now is the present, and from here you can look across your map into the near and more distant future. Now let's take one of your goals, say that major exam scheduled in 4 weeks, and drop that point on your map at a distance that represents roughly 1 month into the future. As you start using this method of time management, you will eventually have multiple points on your map dropped at different distances corresponding to the various deadlines and due dates. This quiz slide will help you pull forward important information from this section of the workshop, which will show up again on the certification review at the end. Some goals are not all that interesting. In fact, they might involve things that you would prefer not to do, maybe like that exam coming up. What is that key step in your effective time management system that will attach importance, meaning, and even inspiration to any goal? It's your purpose. What do we call the broad layout of your life, stretching out into the future ahead of you? It's called your plan. Okay, so now you have a decent picture of the numerous points on your plan, positioned according to their proximity to where you are in the present moment. You've taken the time to electrify each of those points with a compelling sense of why it's important and where it's going to help you go in life. But how will you close the gap between today and tomorrow, between the present moment where you are now and those various points in the future? Introducing the fourth part of your effective time management system, procedure. A procedure is a sequence of steps that you follow to reach your point. Without a clear procedure, your goals will tend to hover ahead of you on a wish list that never comes true. That important exam in 4 weeks, for example, will eventually become an important exam in 3 weeks, then 2, 1, and the day has arrived without you having taken the necessary steps to be fully prepared. As you consider that point 4 weeks in the future, what are the things you'll need to know in order to do well on the exam? Imagine walking across your plan to that point in the future. As you look more closely at it, you'll notice that your goal, doing well on this exam, naturally breaks down into smaller parts, the facts, formulas, and definitions that you'll need to know well. This natural makeup of your point or goal suggests already how you might go about preparing for the exam. For instance, you might take all the definitions likely to be on the exam and write them down on flashcards. You could pull all the formulas to one page so you can see them together, which will in turn help you appreciate how they are similar and different. Certain facts are more likely to be on this exam given the chapters and class lectures it will cover. Start listing them out on a sheet of paper or at your computer, of course using the study guide and other tools your instructor has provided. Now that you have a fair grasp of what information will be covered on the exam, you can begin to sketch out a procedure. Some of that material is already familiar and won't require much study time. Other parts are less familiar, more involved, or abstract. Obviously, you'll need to give more time to looking over and memorizing the areas not as well understood. Take those different chunks of information, familiar and less familiar, and begin to estimate how much time you'll need to reach full confidence with the material. Some chunks will take more time, others less. Say 3 hours here, but probably just 1 hour there. Assign a time value to all the chunks so nothing is left out. Here's a simple strategy to help estimate the time it'll take to master a chunk of information. Take just 5 of your flashcards with definitions and make a mental note of how much time it takes for you to reach the point where you can recall the information without having to double-check the answer. Say it takes you 20 minutes. That works out to an average of 4 minutes per definition. And if there are 30 terms that will likely be on the test, then you'll need to schedule a total of 120 minutes or 3 hours of study time to reviewing your flashcards. This method will help you break through the wall of trying to guess and underestimating how long it will take to get fully confident with the material. By taking a small chunk and actually finding out how long it takes, your study strategy will be both more realistic and more successful in the end. With that done, you now have a pretty accurate picture in your mind of how much time the full procedure of preparing for the exam will take. You have all the elements or chunks laid out before you, with time estimates attached to each one. So the exam is in 4 weeks. That's roughly 28 days, which works out to 672 hours. Obviously, you'll need to sleep, since adequate rest is absolutely necessary for doing well in anything. Maybe you have a job, so some of that time will be tied up at work. What other obligations do you have? The important truth here is that you don't have 672 hours to study for this exam, but in fact, a significantly smaller amount of time. All it means is that you'll need to use your time wisely. In order for you to design a complete procedure for getting to the point where you are fully prepared for the exam, you'll need to take your available time for study and drop smaller points into your plan between now and the exam date. You won't do this randomly, but rather strategically. A strategy is a plan filled in with all the steps of a procedure that will be necessary to reach your point with success. Already, as you are breaking your goal into smaller chunks and assigning a time commitment to each chunk, you are engaged in the fifth and final P of your effective time management system, priority. By giving additional time to the chunks that are more complicated or less familiar, you are making decisions about what has higher value or will require more time and energy. If you don't set priority levels on the different steps of your procedure, it can be tempting to give too much time to what doesn't really need it and leave too little time for what does. Quite often, in both school and life, the things that require more time have more weight in the final outcome, so you definitely want to give them a higher priority. Setting priorities is not only essential for designing a strategy that will help you successfully reach your point, it's also necessary for keeping the numerous points on your plan in perspective. As we said at the beginning of this workshop, a variety of factors such as urgency, time frame, importance, the involvement of other people, and relationships among your various goals go into determining priority. Not only will some steps of a procedure have priority over others, but some goals will have more value than other goals. So how do you know? How can you decide which points on your plan or steps of a procedure have more weight and need a greater amount of your time, attention, and effort? For the answer, just go back to that second P of purpose and ask yourself the following 5 questions. Which of these is more critical and requires action now? Which of these is foundational to other goals and steps later on? Which of these involves other people who are counting on me to do my part? Which of these will make the biggest difference for my outcome? Which of these will get me closer and deeper into the life I really want? So let's check in with one more brief quiz. Once you have placed your point on a plan and given it a timestamp, what do we call the sequence of steps that will get you successfully to your goal? It's called your procedure. Because your life is complicated and you have numerous things you are trying to manage, what do we call the level of importance that you assign a goal or task? It's called priority. At last, we can put together the entire picture of what's involved in successful time management. First, identify and define what you want, what you're reaching for, working toward, or seeking to achieve. According to the time management system explained in this workshop, this is your point, the outcome you need to keep in focus. Next, for your point to have any kind of attraction, you will need to clarify the purpose of your outcome. Why is it important? How will it affect the quality, progress, and direction of your life? Thirdly, you need to decide where to position your point in time. This is the value of having a plan, the broad outlook on your life from the location of this present moment. Then you'll have to fill in the distance between now and that point in the future when your goal will be accomplished. These details are steps in the procedure you will follow. Finally, to be sure that you keep everything in perspective and stay on course, you need to assign a priority to each goal. A high priority goal must not be compromised for a lower priority goal because, by definition, it has more weight or importance for the quality and direction of your life. Near the beginning of this workshop, it was acknowledged that poor time managers set themselves up for failure by giving all their effort and attention to only one goal at a time, letting circumstantial urgency drive their choices and actions, procrastinating on things they don't feel like doing or that require more work, or jumping around randomly from one goal to another as they think of it or have spare time. By now you should be able to appreciate how an effective time management system will prevent these common problems. All that's left for you now is to put this system into practice. Here are some suggestions. Follow the 5 P's of effective time management in order as covered in this workshop. Define your point. Clarify your purpose. Develop a plan. Create a procedure. And identify your priorities. It will help to find a time management tool that will work in your life. Printed or online calendars and smartphone apps work well if you use them daily. Some people like to have a wall calendar that provides a month or more at a glance, with sufficient space to write down goals and tasks, again on a daily basis. A word of caution here. Don't try to manage your time by using multiple calendar devices that won't let you sync them easily. That's just a systematic way of being scattered and missing deadlines. We hope you have found this workshop challenging and helpful. Your next step will be to complete the certification quiz and reflection found with this workshop in your eCampus. An outcome of 80% or higher is required.